Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to TMRP, the Metropolis Radio Podcast. Today we have a lot of news and a lot more than I usually cover on one of these episodes. We're going to be discussing WandaVision getting delayed to 2021, the live-action Lilo and Stitch movie, Sylvester Stallone coming into the Suicide Squad movie, and a Darkwing Duck reboot that is in the works over at Disney+. So with no further dilly-dallying, let's just get right into it, and we're going to start right away with the live-action Lilo and Stitch reboot. John M. Chu, the director of Crazy Rich Asians, is in talks to direct the live-action Lilo and Stitch movie. Dan Lin and Jonathan Elric are back producing the movie under their Rideback banner, and Ryan Halpern is executive producing, and this was the exact same team behind the live-action Aladdin movie. And John M. Chu is no stranger to Disney right now, because I think I reported this about a month ago that he was coming on board for the Willow sequel series that they're developing. And Disney is now looking for a writer to work with Chu on this movie. Mike Van Weas, he's a first-time writer. He wrote the current draft of the movie. Now, keep in mind, the movie has not been greenlit and is still in development. So there is a real chance that this movie doesn't get made at all. Now, for those that don't know, the original animated movie came out in theaters back in 2002, and it wasn't a huge hit in the theaters financially, but it became very popular after releasing the home video. And personally, I remember this airing a lot on the Disney Channel back then. Yes, I was a Disney Channel kid. And there were 3 movies that came out after this one. You had Stitch the movie that came out in 2003 on the Disney Channel, and that pretty much served as a backdoor pilot for the animated series. Then you had Lilo and Stitch 2, Stitch Has a Glitch. I think it went direct to video along with airing on the Disney Channel in 2005. And the last movie to be made, I specifically remember this because I watched this the day it came out, was a Leroy and Stitch that came out in 2006 on the Disney Channel, and it came out right after the animated series ended. And like I said, there was the animated series, ran from 2003 to 2006, and it lasted 65 episodes. So it's not like this was, a short, like, it was like a 1-season type show. No, there were, I think Disney Plus counts it as 2 seasons. It might be closer to 3, but who knows? And, this is still a very popular series for Disney fans in reference to the Lilo and Stitch series. And many fans actually don't want a live-action remake of this, and I have to agree with them. A CGI Stitch would just look really silly. Lilo and Stitch, I argue, only works because it's animated. Why can't Disney just do another animated movie and release that onto Disney Plus? It would be a lot cheaper, and it would probably be more successful for them. Just make Lilo a little older as a result of the amount of time passed. It's now been 14 years since the release of Leroy and Stitch. But yeah, imagine live-action Lilo, live-action Nani running around with a cartoonish CGI Stitch. Yeah, even most people, even people that are supporting this movie's, potential existence would even argue that, yeah, that's a little silly. This should be animated 101. And with this new movie, I'm not saying reboot Lilo and Stitch, but write it in such a way where new people can come in if they've never seen the 4 movies along with the 65-episode animated series. They can just jump right in and be just fine, while it also serving as a continuation for those old school fans. It's a win-win scenario, but again, that's all speculation on my end. I'm not reporting on this is exactly what they're going to do. So please, for the love of God, do not get your hopes up that that's what they're going to do. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and move on. Speaking of Disney+, WandaVision got moved to 2021. The first episode will release on January 15th of 2021. Now, to be fair with this show, it never had an official release date beyond winter 2020. And my big problem with this move is that this show has been completed for months. It was just waiting to be released. Why couldn't you release it like right at the tail end of The Mandalorian or right after it's done airing? And remember, Falcon and Winter Soldier was supposed to be the first MCU show to come out. That was supposed to come out in fall of 2020. Then it got delayed because they wanted to take out a subplot that revolved around a world-ending virus. And WandaVision was supposed to be winter 2020. They were supposed to, rely on each other. Now, I don't know what pushing WandaVision into January is really going to do. But yeah, to get back to Falcon and Winter Soldier, it got delayed again because apparently it's going to pick up from a plot point off of the Black Widow movie that got delayed into April of 2021. And if I'm the outsider looking in, this is the MCU basically falling apart. The MCU shows are falling apart before they even release. I just say Falcon and Winter Soldier picks up from the Black Widow movie that's now been delayed to April 2021. And what's the excuse for this? It's a 6-episode series where each week they riff on a new decade of sitcom style starting in the 50s, referring to WandaVision. Now, presumably, I think that, if I'm judging just from the picture that I'm seeing on the Hollywood Reporter with Vision in the tie and what's her nuts? Scarlet Witch. Sorry, I'm having a brain fart. In the dress. I'm assuming it's going to be like an I Love Lucy and Leave It to Beaver type sitcom. They're probably going to end it, probably in the 90s. They might push it to they might push it to early 2000s. I forgot. We're in 2020 now. So yeah, why do they have to stop in the 90s? And in my opinion, this is why the show shouldn't be impacting the movies. How many people have now just completely checked out of the MCU? Because now, not only do I have to watch all of these movies that are coming out, some I may want to watch, some I may not want to watch, but now I have to watch all of these Disney Plus shows that may or may not interest me. And keep in mind, I think with the Nick Fury show, there's now 9 MCU shows in the works right now. At some point, the MCU is just going to get to be way too difficult for most people to keep up with, and they're just going to go, fuck this, and move on to something else. And the MCU really should have died after Endgame, and everything after that should have all just been loosely connected. And do like what the James Bond franchise did for, 40 years, from Dr. No up through Die Another Day. None of those movies were sequels to each other, yet they referenced each other in very small and subtle ways. But you never had to watch, I didn't have to watch, what's a good example of a movie? Okay, I didn't have to watch Live and Let Die in order to watch Man with the Golden Gun. I didn't have to watch, Thunderball to watch, to watch You Only Live Twice. I almost said Goldfinger, and I would have sounded like a fucking moron there. But anyway, before I rant on for too long, let's go ahead and move on to the third topic. And that third topic is some very happy news for some people. Space Force is being renewed for a Season 2 over at Netflix. Last Friday, Netflix has confirmed that Season 2 of Space Force was happening. And the production, which already was a pretty steep cost, is going to move from LA up to Vancouver, British Columbia, like I said, to bring those production costs down. And a lot of shows are either currently filming up there or have filmed up there. And the two things that come to my mind, all of the Arrowverse shows are shot up in Vancouver, and all of the Stargate shows were shot up there. Stargate SG-1, Stargate Atlantis, Stargate Universe, all that stuff. Those are the shows that are the most prominent that come to my mind right now. And there's a lot more than just those two things. Now, Steve Carell on this show, why is, Space Force moving up to Vancouver? Because Steve Carell is reportedly making nearly $1 million an episode from this. And, I can see why, given that, he's the main star of the show. And he co-created the show with Greg Daniels. And another fun fact, The Office, another show that, was co-created by Greg Daniels, not Steve Carell, but Steve Carell was the main star for the first 7 seasons. The Office still remains one of Netflix's most streamed shows, and it often is streamed more than some of Netflix's most successful originals. So if there was any show to bring back, it would be this show, simply because the guys behind The Office are making this show. Now, whenever there comes a renewal, there comes a cancellation. So what Netflix show got canceled this week? That would be a show called The Order. It was a horror series. On the exact same day that Space Force got renewed for a second season, Dennis Heaton, the creator of The Order, wrote on Twitter, quote, For 2 seasons, I was honored to work with an incredible cast and crew on The Order at Netflix. It was one of the best experiences of my career. Unfortunately, we aren't returning, but I will always cherish the memories and the props I stole. Thank you all for watching. You know, go out on a high note, this is just him taking a bow, so to speak. And, this was one of those shows that when the first season came out, a second season was immediately greenlit, and this was a very common thing at Netflix for years. And Dennis Heaton also teased what fans would have seen in the third season. He also wrote on Twitter, quote, P.S. Jack was totally going to raise Alyssa from the dead, but she was going to come back wrong. Like Pet Cemetery wrong. Probably possessed by, I'm going to mispronounce this name, Zechia, and a whole bunch of other corpses were coming back with her, end quote. And I said this a couple of weeks ago, but I'm going to reiterate it here. Netflix is now only doing shows with either global appeal and or mass appeal. Space Force having the same team from The Office can draw in huge crowds, given not only how successful, but how popular The Office still is to this day. An Assassin's Creed show, the Witcher series with Henry Cavill, and a potential Resident Evil series and more Resident Evil movies are going to be more popular than a horror series like The Order. And this, it sucks. But, I think that this is going to mark the end of just Netflix's wild spending, in my opinion. They're going to have to focus on getting that more global appeal as they basically approach the ceiling of how many subscribers that they can gather. And, for many people that are saying, oh, the Adam Sandler movies are so fucking stupid, blah, 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 blah. Why does Netflix keep making them? Netflix keeps making them because they're so successful overseas. Comedy is a universal language, and something like Adam Sandler comedies, yeah, they're fucking stupid, but it's easy to translate some guy getting kicked in the balls rather than a Bill Clinton joke. Let's be 100% honest here. But before I ramble on about how, comedy has died over the last 20 years, let's go ahead and move on to our next topic, because we do have a lot to get through this week. And that is Disney Plus tops 73 million subscribers. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Disney Plus has attracted 73.7 million subscribers during its first 11 months, basically far exceeding Disney's expectations. Disney Plus is available in 30 countries around the world. Now, they could probably catch Netflix way sooner than they expected, but here's going to be the issue. If they raise their price, that's when you're going to see people just dropping Disney Plus left and right. Given that this is one of the cheapest streaming services on the market, I think Apple TV Plus only beats it, and it's only $5 a month. So that's going to be way more attractive than Netflix, which is now, like 16 or 17 bucks a month now. I know HBO is the most expensive at 17. Now, and I am still of the opinion that Disney Plus launched way too early. They needed to launch with the Mandalorian, that was for sure, and an MCU series at the bare minimum. I don't care how much of a Disney Plus fan you are. You have to admit that their originals have been lacking for the first year. Hopefully it gets better, but still, I say that they launched way too early. And that's going to lead us right into the next topic, and that is Darkwing Duck is getting a reboot of Darkwing Duck is in the works at Disney Plus. And this was first reported by Variety that a Darkwing Duck reboot was in the works over at Disney Plus from their sources. And the only reason that I'm even talking about this is because this was reported in the trade. So I am willing to give this more benefit of the doubt. I think this really is happening. Now, whether or not this actually makes it to Disney Plus, we're going to have to wait to see that. Because right now, no writer is attached according to the source. So this must be like very, very recent. But Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg, James Weaver, and Alex McCaddy of Point Grey Pictures are attached to executive produce. And personally, I really don't know how I feel about Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg behind this, because I'm not the biggest Seth Rogen fan. And I don't think his style of comedy is going to blend well with Darkwing Duck. But Point Grey Pictures, you guys may be familiar with them if you're watching The Boys on Amazon Prime right now. So there's at least some cred there. The Darkwing Duck has been featured in the reboot of DuckTales, and that's something that I learned. In the reboot, he's a fictional character from an old superhero TV series. I wonder why. If anyone has seen my my video on the Shadow, they know exactly where I'm gonna go with this. And personally, I feel that Darkwing Duck should play more into what he is inspired by, and that is the person who knows the evil that lurks in the hearts of men. Ha 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 ha. The Shadow knows. You know, make Darkwing Duck his own character. Don't make him too derivative of the Shadow, but still, you know, the similarities between Darkwing Duck and the Shadow are quite fucking big. You know, the only difference between the two is Darkwing Duck wears a blue scarf instead of a red scarf, with a purple trench coat instead of a black trench coat, and a gray hat instead of a black hat. That's really it. You know, and if the showrunners try to distance themselves too much from that original inspiration, then personally, I think Darkwing Duck is going to fall apart, because many people are then going to see it as a knockoff of the Shadow. But let's also be honest here. How many people are even that familiar with the Shadow? And I said this in my Shadow video, that the last Shadow movie that was made before the Alec Baldwin movie was back in 1962. And I don't even remember I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, and it would take way too long for me to pull up my notes, so I'm not going to do it here. I think it was called Bourbon Street Blues. I could be wrong about that, but I know Bourbon Street was in the title. If you guys are more curious about a more in-depth discussion on the Shadow, I highly recommend that you check out my video. It's probably on the platform that you're currently watching this on. And if you're listening to this on another platform, go over to the YouTuber BitChute channel. It's probably there. Just search for the Shadow, and it'll come up real quick. But before I delve too far into the Shadow, let's move on to Sylvester Stallone is going to be in the Suicide Squad movie. And James Gunn confirmed this back on Saturday, that Sylvester Stallone has joined the cast of the Suicide Squad. And James Gunn wrote in an Instagram post, quote, "Always love working with my friend at @OfficialSlyStallone, and our work today on hashtag the Suicide Squad was no exception. Despite Sly being an iconic movie star, most people still don't have any idea what an amazing actor this guy is," end quote. Now, right now, the role that he is playing is being left as a mystery. And it has not been reported to any of the trades, which leads me to believe that he will either be a surprise reveal like Grindelwald was in Fantastic Beasts. That would actually be pretty cool, setting up a sequel there. Or he's going to be a masked or CGI character that he'll just voice, and they'll hide it to a degree. But again, that is all speculation. Please, for the love of God, do not take that as fact. Okay, I'm more than free to speculate, but please don't take it as an official confirmation. You know, Sly Stallone was in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 for a couple of scenes, another movie that James Gunn had directed, and one of those scenes reunited Sly Stallone with Michael Rooker. Now, for those that don't know the significance of that, both of them were previously in Cliffhanger together. And if you've never seen Cliffhanger, it's not a bad action movie, but it is quite cheesy in quite a few spots. But John Lithgow plays an amazing villain in that one. So, you know, I would check it out if you're a fan of action movies. If you're not, you're going to think it's the stupidest movie on the planet. And personally, I just hope that the Suicide Squad from James Gunn will be better than David Ayer's Suicide Squad, where basically in David Ayer's Suicide Squad, they sent in a girl with a baseball bat, a guy with a boomerang, and a guy who can shoot a gun very well to take on, you know, Cara Delevingne's supernatural villain while being a cheap knockoff of the Raid all at the same time. You know, why in the hell do you send in a girl with a baseball bat, a guy with a boomerang, and a guy who can shoot a gun very well to take on a supernatural villain? The amount of leaps in logic you have to take to get to that point is quite staggering. But enough about the Suicide Squad, and we're going to look at, you know, HBO Max finally comes to Amazon Fire TV devices. Now, this news just came out on Monday. After 6 months, Warner Media finally reached a deal with Amazon to distribute HBO Max on their Fire TV devices. and I am with AT&T, so I get HBO Max for free, so that's great for me. Actually, what sucks for me is I don't have an Amazon Fire TV device. I only have a Roku player. So at this point, Roku is the last remaining holdout. Now, for those of you that don't remember, NBC Universal's Peacock, they took the exact same approach. Both Peacock and HBO Max were not available on either Amazon or Roku. But Peacock, a couple months ago, they made a deal with Amazon first. You know, get on Amazon, and then Roku followed very shortly after. And I'm just going to say this. If Roku continues to hold out much longer, this is going to make them look really, really shitty. And this could actually cost them more if they're not careful. And I think this is why Warner Media is trying to force Roku's hand here. You know, hey, you want HBO Max? Too fucking bad. You're going to have to go to Amazon. And personally, I am not going to have a Roku media player and a Fire TV device just so I can get away from watching HBO Max on my PS4. It ain't going to fucking happen. And I wouldn't be surprised if the vast majority of you listening to this feel the exact same way. So hopefully this brings about good news because, hey, all Roku owners, HBO Max might be finally coming and we can finally get away from, you know, the regular, you know, HBO. And so that piece of good news is done. Now let's move on to WonderGirl. A new WonderGirl series is in development for the CW. This news also came on Monday. Now, to be fair, the WonderGirl only has a script development deal over at the CW right now. So this show is still only in development. So like I said about the Darkwing Duck reboot, there's a potential this may not happen. But Greg Berlanti is set to executive produce like he does with all the other Arrowverse shows. And, hold on guys, stupid fucking autocorrect went into my notes and ruined the name. So I'm going to have to look this up. I'm sorry for derailing this a bit. Where is it? Okay, here we go. Variety finally rolled it up. Dalen Rodriguez, who previously worked on Ugly Betty and served as a showrunner on the last couple of seasons of USA Network's Queen of the South, is set to write and executive produce alongside Greg Berlanti. Now, for those who don't know, the WonderGirl in this series is going to be I'm going to mispronounce this name. My Spanish is a little rusty. Yara Flor, a Latina dreamer who was born of an Amazonian warrior and a Brazilian river god, and she is the newest iteration of WonderGirl in the comics. WonderGirl's first appearance in the comics was in The Brave and the Bold number 60, and that was published back in June and July of 1965. And personally, I feel that the Arrowverse is just getting way too big for its own good. You know, Arrow just ended after its 8th season. Thank God that show should have ended after season 5. The Arrow wasn't bad in the beginning, but then it got really shitty. Right after season 2. You also have shows like Supergirl, The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, Black Lightning, Batwoman, and the new Superman and Lois show. So you now have 6 shows, you know, running now. Superman and Lois is not on the air yet. So technically 5 shows on the air, 1 that's about to hit the air, and now a 7th show that's going to be in development. You know, and all of these shows typically have 22 episode seasons. These are not little shows like The Mandalorian or Game of Thrones here with only, you know, 8 to 10 episode seasons. And, you know, if the MCU is going to be difficult to keep up with all these movies and Disney Plus shows, you know, this Arrowverse is going to be a lot harder, especially since these shows really like to do crossovers with each other. So you're going to have to watch Supergirl in order to watch Legends of Tomorrow. You're going to have to watch, you know, The Flash to watch Batwoman, so on and so forth. That's why after Arrow season 2, I dropped out of this. I dropped out of this entirely. You know, the Arrowverse shows, yeah, they don't like to just keep to themselves. Had they done that, I think they'd be in a much better place, but that's neither here nor there. And we've only got a few more news topics this week, so yeah, I've already gone on a lot longer than I have before. Actually, it's not that bad, only about 25 minutes. But yeah, so let's go ahead and let's move on to the next main topic, and that is Universal and Cinemark have struck a deal to shorten the theatrical window. And this news came out on Monday. Universal and Cinemark have reached a deal to shrink the theatrical window down to just 31 days. And that's usually when most movies typically leave theaters, and I've noticed that over the past 10 years. It's extremely rare where the movies were ever in theaters for the entire 3 months. I think the last movie to be in the theaters that long was James Cameron's Avatar. And Avatar came out about 10 years ago. And now part of the deal is that any Universal movie that doesn't open to $50 million or more, opening weekend, will have Cinemark's blessing to make its PVOD debut after just 17 days versus a month, guaranteeing the theaters have 3 full weekends for each movie made. Now AMC and Cinemark are behind Universal doing this. Regal at this point is the only holdout. And at some point, Regal is going to have to cave. Just like Roku holding out on HBO Max, Regal could lose a lot of money by not making this deal, by basically saying, no, we will not show any Universal movies if they don't argue the theatrical window. Go ahead and try to say, we're not going to show Fast and Furious 9, and if you want to watch it, go down to AMC or Cinemark. No business in the world is going to tell you, go to your competition because wham, they don't want to give us what we want. Theaters at this point, they're going to have to adjust since the market has shifted so rapidly. Now, yes, the theaters lost money during this whole pandemic shit. And I have stated this before. The studios have to also pay back creditors. That is relatively known. And I've even made this comment before that if the studios wanted to save the theaters, then they would have agreed to take the haircut on their movies and basically make enough money for both sides to stop the bleeding, rather than the studios just sitting on the sidelines going, you know what, we're going to cheer on the movie theaters. We hope that they pull through. But if they don't pull through, whatever. We've got PVOD, which only worked for a few movies, and most of the movies that we released to it didn't make that much money. But, hey, we've got PVOD, so hope and pray to God nobody pirates that shit. I am not advocating for sailing the 7 seas here, but let's be honest, most people's opinions are the second it hits the internet, it becomes free. Let's all be 100% honest in that regard. And the next piece of news is that Quentin Tarantino signs a 2-book deal with HarperCollins. Quentin Tarantino recently signed a 2-book deal with HarperCollins. 1 book will be fiction, the other is nonfiction. So let's get the nonfiction book out of the way first. That will be called Cinema Speculation, and that is a mixture of essays, reviews, and personal writing, all regarding the movies from the 1970s. That doesn't surprise me that he's going to go down that road. And the fiction book will actually be a novelization of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and hopefully the book will go a lot deeper than the movie did. The movie wasn't bad, but it definitely needed to be 2-parted. Part 1 should have just focused on Rick Dalton and Cliff Booth, finding their way through the new Hollywood system, and have Part 2 focus on the Manson family stuff. And I'm not the only person with that opinion. I actually got that opinion from a friend of mine. He said it to me while we were at the bar drinking, and I happened to agree with it, and it stuck. Now, Quentin Tarantino stated, quote, "In the 70s, movie novelizations were the first adult books I grew up reading, and to this day, I have a tremendous amount of affection for the genre. So as a movie novelization aficionado," stroking his own fucking ego there, but whatever, "I'm proud to announce Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as my contribution to this often marginalized yet beloved subgenre in literature," end quote. And he is right. A movie novelization is always looked down upon. But, I will say this in regards to his statement. Other than, stroking his own ego for a second, he's not entirely wrong. Oftentimes, the novelization can go a lot deeper than the movie can, simply because a movie is limited to just 2 to 2.5 hours, whereas a novel is not really limited in length. You can explore the characters deeper if you wanted to. Even entire subplots that had to get cut to save time on screen can be resurrected in a movie novelization. And look no further than the Star Wars prequel novels. The novelizations of The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith. Yes, I have read them all. And you know that opening space battle in Revenge of the Sith is like 30 minutes on screen? It's about 125, 150 pages of the Revenge of the Sith novelization. Yeah, they drag it out quite large, but there's a lot of subplots that had to get cut for the movie, because you can't exactly make a 5-hour movie and release that theatrically. It just wouldn't work. You're not gonna make the money. You know, you have to cut your movies down, unfortunately. And the final piece of news, I hate to go out on sad news, but Conan O'Brien is ending his talk show on TBS. It will be coming to an end in 2021. And now Conan O'Brien is not going away completely. He's not going into retirement. He's simply just moving to doing a weekly variety show over on HBO Max. And he will still continue to make Conan Without Borders for TBS. But yeah, after 10 seasons of Conan, he's finally calling it. And for me personally, that really sucks, given that he was one of the last of a generation of late night hosts. Let's be honest. All of them now are just so painfully unfunny. And I only watched him, and I did watch the Late Late Show for quite a bit, but not with James Corden. Fuck that guy. No, I watched the Late Late Show when it was being hosted by Craig Ferguson. And Craig Ferguson was one hell of a host. It sucks that he quit. And personally, I think Conan has seen the writing on the wall in terms of these late night shows, even though he's on during the middle of the day. The late night show genre is pretty much dead, since all of these hosts just parrot each other's jokes, and all of the shows basically feel the same as a result. Now, I'm not going to go into, why the late night TV genre has died. There's plenty of YouTube videos that already chronicle that, so I'm just going to be, treading over the ground that they've already treaded. So I guess I'm going to end with the final question. Am I sad that Conan on TBS is going away? Yeah, I really am. A lot of late night hosts really can't deal with stand-up comics all that well. If we're being 100% honest, it's a lot of, we've got Jennifer Lawrence here, and she's going to star in this new movie that no one has heard about until today. So let's bring her out here. We're going to circle jerk each other for the next 5 minutes. So yay! Okay, so you've got this new movie coming out, but I heard a story about you and Bella Ruth that you hooked up with another woman. Oh, well, Jimmy, those stories are not true, but you know what everyone should do? Everyone should go see my new movie, which is going to be called Fuck Me in the Ass, that is coming out in theaters on July 15th early, and for everyone else, it's coming out on February 3rd. Yay! That's all they fucking are now, and I'm sorry you had to sit through my terrible impressions. If you can't tell, I fucking ad-libbed all that. But yeah, once Conan on TBS is done, I'm pretty much done with the late night show genre entirely. I'm never going to watch another one. And, guys, aside from my horrible impression of Jimmy Fallon and Jennifer Lawrence, that is going to conclude the show for this week. So for those of you who would like to follow me, I do have a blog, metropolisradio.blogspot.com. The link will be below in the description of whatever platform you're watching this on, or if you're listening to this on another platform sometime in the future, this will be in the show notes. If you want to follow me on social media, I am on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @Metropolis. That is a capital M, lowercase e, T-R, capital O, lowercase b, E-L-I-S-K. If you fucking hate Twitter, which I do not blame you, I am also over on Parler with the exact same handle, @Metropolis. And lastly, if you enjoy the content that I produce, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the BitChute channel. It's a small click for you, but for a small channel like mine, it really does help out a lot. Like, comment, and share this around, only if you want to. You're not obligated to. And that's going to do it for this week's episode of TMRP, the Metropolis Radio Podcast. And I will see you guys next time.